All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Crypt of the Unknown. I'm drawing Parasite Eve today, and I have Chavo here with me. My dumbass at the beginning here, when I was doing the outline for the character, didn't put it underneath the camera, so I apologize about that, but it wasn't, it was literally like a minute or something that I sped it up so I could just get it out of the way. Anyways, you want to say hello, Chavo?
If I must. Hello, everybody.
And this was your idea to talk about Parasite Eve, and I know that we had, I had a run-in with it before when I played it for an old podcast I was on, and I absolutely adored the game. It was my first time playing it, even though I had owned it as a kid and just never played it because it didn't look fun to me. But why did you want to talk about the game?
Well, because I happen to be revisiting it right now. At work, I have my beat-up old PSP, and one of the games I've been playing through to get through some of this pandemic bullshit has been Parasite Eve. And the first one's been, it's great to play through because it's got all these RPG elements. So, there's a lot of time where you can just spend grinding and kind of, improving Aya, and you don't have to worry about being completely lost when you drop back into the game.
Yeah, that was kind of like the thing that took me by surprise because it's really, people would equate it to like a clone of RE and then to a lesser extent Silent Hill just because of it being a survival horror, quote unquote, game. But it really does have those elements of JRPG, which, like, when I first played it, I was like, wait, what? How does this game play? Oh, okay.
It's a really weird marriage, It's like, hey, you got your Resident Evil in my Final Fantasy, and it works.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because you've beaten this game more than I have, and I want to say that, like, it's survival horror, but it doesn't feel as, like, it probably wouldn't have scared me as much as a kid as, like, RE or something.
It's kind of hard for me to say. I do think it's just it feels like it very much leans towards the body horror aspect in terms of where it sits on the spectrum for when it comes to horror, because there's a lot of mutation and evolution and normal everyday animals turning into horrific creatures.
Right. So we should actually explain what the story is for people who don't know what Parasite Eve is. It's basically mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes, and it's what would happen if that mitochondria turned out to be sentient, and it turns out that it was, I don't know, it kind of plays with the definition of parasite. It's like, is the mitochondria the parasite in us, or are we the parasites in the world of the mitochondria?
Right. And the whole actual game is a sequel to a novel that was done by a guy who I think was a pharmacologist or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then he basically knows his science, and he kind of applied it to the story where if mitochondria, like you said, kind of took over and started dictating the world around us.
Yeah, the original novel was about I believe a woman receives an organ transplant, and the mitochondria in it mutates inside of her, and she ends up turning into a sentient being named Eve. And her husband, who's a scientist, is he's trying to keep track of all of this, and I think eventually she ends up like going through a rampage in Japan, and manages to steal his sperm at one point in an attempt to birth the ultimate being. And then I believe in the process of giving birth, unfortunately, because she used her host husband's sperm, his mitochondria and his DNA ends up destroying her from the inside out.
Yeah. Does it explain how she acquired this sperm?
Actually, yes. Because it's been forever since I read the original novel, but essentially I think his wife like he thought she was dead, and she comes to him in the again in the form of his wife, and she has sex with him basically, and just takes his stuff and leaves.
The old switcheroo.
Yeah, and this game being a direct sequel, I believe our main character Aya Brea is supposed to be the daughter of another person who received an organ, I believe, from the same source.
Right.
Again, I could be totally misremembering this, but I just know that it's Aya's mother is like supposed to be the question mark at the end of the novel, because you find out like, oh no, she received the other organ. What's going to come of that situation?
No, I think you're remembering it right, because as I was drawing here, I was trying to like listen to retrospectives and stuff and kind of rehash some of those factoids and memories I have of the game, because it's very much like, I mean, given whether you are like believe into the science of the game, which is kind of like its own bold statement on destruction of the earth and people in general just being like a disruption on the planet. Like I like in the game itself, when I was first playing it, it's actually not a hard game once you understand its mechanics. Like the biggest thing for me when I first played it, like the contention was that, okay, this is hard because I just don't feel like I have enough health. And you kind of do level up in the game. You can like upgrade your weapons. This is one of those games where like even the base weapons you can take to the end of the game and just make them like unruly like powers of God to destroy anything in your path. But those mechanics service you, and once you learn them, like I had, it took me a second to remember that, oh, I can heal. So that changed the whole game for me.
Right. It's interesting because there's not much of like, oh, I found the strong gun. Like you can definitely find guns that have a stronger starting stat. Like their base stats are way more juiced up in comparison to like what you start with.
Right.
But it's great because the game, like, it really does prioritize exploration. Like they're pre-drawn backgrounds, and they're kind of you walk through them, and like you can find like hidden doors and hidden passageways and like tricks in the camera where it's like if you walk in there and like, oh wow, there's a whole other room and there's like a bunch of chests in here. What am I looting this time?
Yeah. And like this game, because it came back out, or it came out in the 90s, so it kind of has like a little bit of like 90s tropes and a little bit of things that you're like, wait, is that guy? Like, are they just doing that guy from that movie? Like I think it's her partner, right? Daniel's her partner, and he's kind of like taken from Lethal Weapon in a sense.
Oh yeah, no, he's going by Japan's love of Western culture. He's definitely based off of Danny Glover as Roger Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah,
and it's great because he has Barrett's face from Final Fantasy VII. So it's like if this was a movie universe, it'd probably be the same actor.
That's true. But yeah, the first time I played it again, after figuring out the mechanics of the game, the settings of it really started to pop for me. I'm trying to remember where the game. Oh, the Opera House, isn't it like an actual New York opera house?
No, that's Carnegie Hall. Like a lot of the locations from the game are actual locations in New York. We have the Chrysler Building, Carnegie Hall, Central Park, the Museum of Natural History, which some of you may recognize from Night at the Museum with Ben Stiller.
Mm-hmm. And I think that because there's a boss fight in the museum, that I think in the actual museum in New York there is a skeletal dinosaur there, like a T-Rex or something. So that wasn't like just thrown in there just cause, like it's an actual thing that exists in the world that they decided to like utilize for the game.
Yes, I definitely, if I remember right, and if that Ben Stiller movie was grounded in reality, there is a fully intact T-Rex skeleton at the museum.
Yeah.
So she utilizes that. Oh, and then of course there's the Statue of Liberty, which takes place in. I wish I could say it was the place of the final boss fight, but it's not. It's like the penultimate fight.
Mm-hmm. And we like we've discussed this before, especially after I played it, which I had to really blast through it just to record for this old podcast I was on that I will not name. Yeah, better less said. But when I blew through it, I actually still enjoyed it, and there's a part in the game where you kind of figure out that things are in the underbelly of New York, like in the sewers and stuff, and there's all this stuff flowing towards the Statue of Liberty and the museum and everything, and I instantly was like, wait, Ghostbusters 2?
I part of me would like to believe that wasn't just like, hey, I saw Ghostbusters 2 on TV the other day, and I got a great idea for how Eve can get around the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially what happens is, so like the beginning of the game, Eve takes possession of the lead actress in this opera at Carnegie Hall and ends up like emulating almost the entire audience with the exception of Aya, because she doesn't have any, for some reason her powers just don't quite affect her. And for some fucking reason, I'm not going to say the plot of this game's perfect, and it could be that they're implying that there's subliminal mind manipulation that goes on, because they do hint at it. But for some reason, there's a concert that was supposed to be held with that actress the next day, and all these people in New York gather in Central Park for this concert, even though she's dead. It's on national news. She is presumed dead, but they all still show up there anyway. And she shows up and like overheats them to the point that they all like melt into this fleshy, orange, goopy mass. And essentially, like, I want to say, the entire second to third act of the game, you're basically chasing all that crap around the city.
Yeah, because the actual, unlike Resident Evil, kind of like Silent Hill, you do have these areas, these big stretches of playing fields where you can, like the museum, for instance, you can go to different levels and you can go to different areas, and that's just where that specific location is. But I think in the game there's like 6 to 8 different places you can go, and
I lost count. There's the police station, precinct number 17. There's the warehouse, which is an optional place you can go with high-powered monsters to get the rocket launcher.
It's totally worth it, by the way.
Yeah, there's the museum, there's Central Park, there's Carnegie Hall, there's after you beat the game and you play on basically New Game Plus, you unlock the ability to go through the Chrysler Building, which is a randomized dungeon where you have to go up 65 floors. The last 5 being super easy because it's just a staircase, but you have to go up at least 60 floors of a randomized dungeon and then get to the tip top of it to take on a new final boss.
This is the staircase 5. So is the staircase portion of it, is it very reminiscent of FF7 since they were both made by the same company?
No, because it makes FF7s look like a cakewalk, because again, this is every time you go up a set of stairs to the next floor, it's a new it's not structured like how it probably is in real life or in any other normal building where the staircase is one contained column. It's all it's literally all just like you go to the next floor and you're like, shit, all right, now I gotta walk around, fight these enemies, hopefully find a storage closet with some cool weapons and armor in it, and then see if I can find the next set of stairs. And every 10 floors you have to fight a boss, and you unlock a key. You get a key that you can use on the elevator, And basically it gives you the power to find the elevator on the floor, go down, and restock, do whatever you got to do, and then you can bypass all those dungeons by taking the elevator up.
Oh man. All right. Yeah. See, and that's this game. Like the difficulty for me. See, like that just sounds like a nightmare to me because being stuck in small areas is kind of like what they do with a lot of the bosses in this game. Like when you fight the actress slash singer slash Eve on the carriage, which is like really your first big boss fight other than the worm near Central Park. That whole thing, like you're literally on a carriage roof. That's it. That's the whole playing field you have. That's it.
A horse-drawn carriage because she set the horse on fire, so of course it's losing its shit and just like, ah!
Yeah, it's like, it's very cinematic. Like, I think of like Johnny Depp Pirates of the Caribbean on top of a carriage type deal. But it's you like literally can't, it's almost like you can't dodge any attacks. And if I remember correctly, the only way I beat that is by learning to heal, which you do have the ability for what is considered magic in this game, but it's very much like tied to the mitochondria and everything that's going on. And my point being is that the action system, like when you stop to perform an action, like let's say you're going to shoot something with your machine gun, there's a bubble that comes out. It's almost like enemy unknown or something. It's a bubble that comes out and it says you're going to have this much percentage of attacking something. Right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And so you kind of like have to get closer to things and have them in that bubble. I mean, you can still hit things outside of it, but you have a less likely chance of hurting it.
You can expand it if you upgrade the range on your weapons. I don't think you have to deal with that quite as much with well, I shouldn't say spells, with your parasite abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, they're the basic staples. You have slow, you have haste, you have, you have different, like you have like regen, but it's called like gene heal or something, where you can use your mitochondria to slowly heal yourself.
Right. But yeah, that all plays and factors into how you like go about each battle, because like battles are pretty much random. It is almost like FF in a way. Yeah,
it's every different camera angle you're in, you run a potential of setting off a random encounter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much like in the Final Fantasy world where it's like you take a step and bam, dun 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 dun. I will say though, Aya does have again, just it's a huge list of her PE abilities, her parasite powers. My favorite probably still being Liberate, where she mutates into a mitochondrial being and just kicks the ever-loving shit out of everything on the field.
It's like the Guardian fighters or Guardian forces in FF in a way.
Yeah, and it's great because when you face the actual true final boss of the game, it's her sister, it's her twin sister that we hear about throughout the plot, and she takes on the exact same form. So if you use it against her, it's like watching twins beat the shit out of each other.
Yes. And, the other thing about, like, when you get into the action is this is one game that, while I wouldn't put it above Resident Evil or Silent Hill, it still has an amazing soundtrack, especially the battle theme.
It was done by Yoko Shimura, who Kingdom Hearts fans will of course recognize. I think she did the soundtracks for, I want to say at least all the main titles. But I think this was like her first soundtrack with Squaresoft at the time. She kind of jumped in there, and it's this beautiful blend of opera and electronica that's just so fucking 90s, but is so good.
Yeah, it really is. And the second game kind of takes, as you pointed out to me, Chavo, kind of takes more of a They Live approach, where it actually literally sounds like the soundtrack to They Live.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely tries to go for more of a John Carpenter vibe, which works because the sequel, I mean, it really felt like it was kind of aping a bit on something John Carpenter would write. You know, if John Carpenter wrote Tremors, essentially that's what it felt like.
It really is. And it does take place out in a desert, so
Yeah. Parasite Eve 1 is East Coast in New York, and Parasite Eve 2 takes place on the West Coast, bouncing between Los Angeles and the Mojave Desert, which I got it at the risk of sounding like an idiot, I believe is in Nevada.
yes. I'll just say yes. Yeah, it is. No, actually it is, because it's in, and I know this because of video games, it's in Fallout, New Vegas. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just Googled it. Yep. No.
No?
Wait a minute. Mojave Desert. It's, well, thank you, Wikipedia. Yes, it is probably the driest desert in the country. It's in southeastern California. Okay. So at least I didn't have that confirmed that I am a complete idiot. So it's in California, which explains why it's not too far a drive from Los Angeles.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants me to point out something on a map, it's going to vary depending on what it is. I'm not good with deserts, that's for sure.
Well, that'll be the next episode. Draw a map, Stefan.
Yeah. So,
oh, wait. Part of it is in Las Vegas. Or part of it is in Nevada. God damn it.
See, I knew it, because it's in Fallout New Vegas.
This is why I'll never be a cartographer. Just never.
Seriously, though, if I had to draw a map of the U.S., I'm pretty sure I'd just be like, all right, Arizona, California, Colorado, Skyrim territory, Isengard, Washington.
You can sit down now, Mr. Delgado. Okay.
Did I win? But yeah, there's that's the thing too. Like when people try to like point out shit that you learned in 5th grade, it's like, yeah, I haven't thought about that since that one day in 5th grade. And you know how many times I look at a world map, let alone the US state map? Never.
Probably friends with the same guy who has to grammatically correct people every single step of the way.
Yeah. It's like, I'm how are you? I'm good. You mean you're well?
No, I mean get fucked. Goodbye.
I'm poking fun at Webb a little bit right there. He's a scholar in grammatical errors, and basically he's done a lot of editing in his life, so it's kind of built into a system. So I can forgive him, but he does it a lot to me, and I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll remember that.
It's okay. I'm a writer. We go through with the sledgehammer first, and then editors usually the ones coming through with the brooms. Like, I'm just gonna tidy this up a bit.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm trying to think, because like here's the problem with Parasite Eve 2, and I'll say the highlights of what I liked about Parasite Eve 1. So first off, you get to travel around New York. There's these very well-hidden load times where you're traveling in the car with Daniel Murtaugh, and you guys are kind of like basically giving exposition every single time you're in there. Like, well, we found out this, so that must lead us to this because of that, and that's fine. That's completely fine. It works for the game.
So if the obviously evil scientist who's been gathering data about random people in New York who just turned into a pile of goo isn't suspicious enough, maybe we should investigate some random warehouse in the middle of New York. But shouldn't we just arrest the scientist? Don't think I was asking you that.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to read my lines here. Let me finish.
Damn it.
No, and that works for this game, and it's great because it's snowing. New York is isolated. There's not many people there that are left alive. Eve kills relentlessly. There's
Oh,
this.
no, they do evacuate New York too. There's a whole.
Yeah, that's what I meant by like it's isolated now because there was an evacuation, and it's very great for setting the atmosphere and tone of the game because everything seems devoid of life now that everyone's not on the actual island of New York City. And you skip over to the second game, and it has this beautiful opening with setting up this bomb explosion in a building in New York. It's almost like
a rooftop mall, the Acropolis Tower. It's got like a weird Greek theme to it.
Right, and it kind of sets up like and I've pointed this out before. It's like almost like Raccoon Police Department and like Hunk's team taking the G virus from William Birkin and Resident Evil 2. Because you see like scattered members of the forces that are like barely alive, or they're just all been massacred.
Well, yeah, it's the thing is they weren't even trying to gather data. It was literally just LA sent in their SWAT teams, and these things just fucking annihilated like a good chunk of their SWAT. So they're like, oh, maybe we should call in MIST, which is the new organization that they put together by that one to deal with all of the neo-mitochondrial creatures that escaped during the Manhattan incident in the first game.
Yeah, and maybe it could almost kind of like beat Resident Evil in that way to the BSAA.
Pretty much same principle.
Yeah, same principle, same telltale for what you would do in those situations. But the problem with the second game is it takes you out of New York City and it takes you into the desert, the Mojave Desert, which we just realized is in part of Nevada. And I didn't like it for that reason. I missed New York.
I'm going to respectfully disagree, just because I feel like when you do a sequel, you do have to try to be conscious of not repeating yourself. And I can appreciate, the town of Dryfield and all the settings we encounter in that one for standing out as something different, a different flavor compared to the cold New York streets. Because the first game, we're running around in New York around Christmas time. It takes place over the span of an entire week. Parasite Eve takes place over the span of like a small weekend. You're running through, again, a normal deserted town. And then, my only criticism, I guess, of the setting would just be the laboratory underneath, because that feels like they're just aping too much on Resident Evil. But I can still respect, again, them trying to take some different steps and try new things.
See that? I agree with you in that, but I think they should have waited a little bit longer. And a perfect example would be RE2 and 3 taking place in the same setting. There's like a repeat setting is okay as long as you cleanse it and find something new to do in it. For me, that's the way I see it. But at the same time, I do respect that they tried something new. I just don't think desert was the thing that they should have went with. Like maybe forest, mountain forest, or something.
Honestly, I wish they would have just stayed in LA. It would have been interesting to be dealing with this stuff on the streets of Los Angeles than having to walk around a dry, arid desert. It's the same reason why I love Jurassic Park 1 versus The Lost World and 3. Because they, the later sequels, they stick in jungle, which, you're going to see dinosaurs in that. And you're like, oh, well, they blend in. But in Jurassic Park 1, you have raptors in the kitchen and you have, T-Rexes chasing Jeeps. And it's just, it's the wrong thing in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it works.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Also, they made Aya Brea, like, the main character, this girl who I'm drawing, they made her like dummy thick in the second game. I'm not sure why.
Anyone who looks at the concept art for the first game knows exactly why, because the art director, I believe it was the art director for this game, was that's charming.
Well, okay, real quickly, why I'm flipping that off, and you'll notice the cut there, like the camera wasn't in focus for like me creating this little gray area. So I was like flipping it off because I'm like, God damn it, I did it again.
It's all right. It's all right. We it's like the blooper reel at the end of a Jackie Chan movie. But anyway,
It's funny, right? It's all
exactly. But oh shit, what was I gonna say?
It was Aya Brea getting thick because
oh yeah. So the concept art, the art director was very very thirsty. Like there's a concept picture of Aya wearing nothing but her signature gray jacket, just cleavage, posing with the gun, and then in the sequel they make her dummy thick and they give her an extended shower scene because again it was the 90s or no it was like the early 2000s and like you got to capture that teenage boy demographic. You just gotta.
Yeah, that was the era of Tomb Raider for sure.
And then by the third birthday, that disgusting PSP game, they literally have art where she's just filleting her gun, and it's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Well, because when I look at like the movie book like artwork, and you're saying the concept art for the first game and stuff, there's literally nakedness just barely covered up for all of it. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's so unnecessary. It's a different time. I get it, but it's just so unnecessary.
On a counterpoint to all of that, though, not that I'm objecting female characters, but I do say it at least made sense in the first game, in particular, because it is very much like the female body. Women in general, it's kind of like a common motif for the story. Eve in the first game, she's trying to give birth to the ultimate being. She's trying to reproduce. It's all about the female body.
That's true, which is why, like, even the title card for this video, which you see for like 5 seconds, I don't know why I even bother doing them, but when I had to choose a picture, like, of course I could have chose the one where you see like her cleavage and just her jacket's barely covering up the, nipple area. But I was like, no, I'll pick the one with her in her opera dress because A, she is a sexy woman, and that's fine showing off a woman being sexy. And 2, I didn't really need to go that far. Nobody does. Like I said.
Less is more,
Yeah. But I do want to bring up the fact, and this is a little thing that bothered me, is that so your introduction to Aya as a character is first off her at the opera house and
on a date,
and you never get to see her date again in the game. That never pays off. He just
because it's a one-off joke because he's a puss essentially. Like she goes to the date and he's bragging. He's like, oh yeah, I have connections. I think he's the mayor's son, maybe, or he knows the mayor. And he's like, you're the one who wanted to go to the opera. And you can tell he's like, man, if this doesn't get me laid, I don't know what will. And then the shit goes down. People start getting set on fire. And he's just like, I don't want to die. And she pulls a fucking gun from her garter belt. And it's just like, get out of here. And just knocks him out. Like, ugh.
But yeah, and then in that instance, it shows off how badass she is,
Is that normal for police officers, though? Like, I'm going on a hot date. Better take my firearm with me.
I mean, I would.
Gunplay, it's always hot. It might work later.
Yeah. But I just want to point out something with the artwork here before we go on with the story is that so when Chavo asked me this, it was kind of right in the middle of me doing like 2 other drawings, but I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And but I wanted to try and do, like I promised, I'd try to do more backgrounds and everything. So this is really going to be me winging it. Like you're literally going to see me just going artsy fartsy, winging a background. It's not good. I'm going to go on record and say I did not think I accomplished what I wanted. And because of that, I'm going to do a second Parasite Eve drawing at some point to just say sorry. But this was totally me just having fun and just doing whatever. But it wasn't. I don't think I did a good job.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about art. You know, you have your missteps along the way, but you still have something to show from it, and you'll learn, and a better product will come from it.
Yeah.
Kind of like that video you did where you showed off all of the art that you did, you know, from growing up. Like, it's, you don't just immediately like, you know what, I feel like drawing a parasite mitochondrial mutated babe right now, and then just fucking shit it out like first thing. Like, you gotta take steps.
Yeah, I definitely do try to practice these drawings before I actually record them, if people don't know that. Or if I don't think I've ever said that before, but sometimes I will be like, oh, I got to draw thing A. Well, I better like try it a couple times before I waste time recording myself doing it. So I do put extra amount of time into these before you even see how much time I do to record them, then to get them from my phone to my computer, then to edit, then to do the audio and edit, clean and edit that, and then put it together, and then the music and a title card, blah blah blah.
Pre-production, yay!
Yeah, which Chavo knows about, as he's pointed out last time. He, for anyone who didn't watch that, the Alice one, which is doing pretty damn good. He pointed out that he's also done some stage work, and you know, he had his own stage production going. So I remember when you did it, Chavo, you were so frustrated.
Well, I'm not going to go into the specifics on that one, but yes, sometimes collaborative projects and stuff, when you're overseeing like every facet of a production, there could be friction. You know, you're trying to get something done and you're trying to coordinate everyone to work a goal, and no one ever said being the leader was easy, you know?
Right. Which goes back to, you know, the art here. So I just want to apologize that the background to me, you know, didn't come out as perfect as I wanted. And again, I'm doing like new things that I haven't done before, like with my thumb, making these gray spots and then adding white and using white out, and you know, I was never ever proficient on backgrounds. Like characters in the human body, I've definitely learned to a degree, but not backgrounds, not yet. So
Well,
this is almost practice.
Again, like how are people supposed to grow if they don't try first, right?
Right. So I just want to point that out real quick, but getting back to Parasite Eve.
You're not forgiven. Anyway.
No. But yeah, this is like the actual Eve character too. Like her being an opera singer, I can actually like forgive her character design for having so much cleavage in what she's wearing.
Well, yeah, because it's like a Italian opera dress, so they're all about the titties and their design.
Yeah, it's 100% like corset almost.
Pretty sure, yeah, corset is part of the costume.
Mm-hmm.
And it mutates with her over time until I think you run into her in the museum, and by that point she's mutated and heavily pregnant.
And heavily topless, if I remember too.
Yeah, but no nipples, therefore it's okay in 90s video game logic.
Yeah, it's very Japanese though.
I'm going to be a mother, but now I have no nipples. Does anyone else see the problem here?
Do you have a favorite line of the game?
Well, yeah, actually, because we talked about this last night when I pitched the episode. I really want to do like a list of like one-liners from 90s video games, because Parasite Eve has a. I don't want to say it's cringeworthy, but it's corny and it's campy and it makes me smile. The end of the game takes place in a battleship, like a Navy cruiser, and there's a very, very tense part where you have to run from the ultimate being, which is the thing that Eve gives birth to. And right. It's a very tense chase, and you're running throughout like all these hallways, and if you make a wrong turn, you know, it's instant death, and then you have to do the boss fight beforehand all over again. You don't want that to happen. So you're running, and then you get to the boiler room which is the ultimate goal. And she, turns to the creature after it falls down the ladder, and she's like, "You know where we are? Hell's Kitchen!" And she fucking like yanks a valve and then just books it out of the ship, and it just explodes. And I'm just like, that's so 90s and so wonderful, and just yes to this game's writing.
Yeah, if it had came out in the 80s though, she would have been like, "You know where we are? We're in the jungle, baby. Time to die."
I don't think I is a Guns N' Roses fan.
It's more reserved for John Connor, I see.
Yeah. You could be mine.
I think
you're not my partner, Daniel.
I think one of my favorite lines, I think Eve says it. She says, because she's talking about humanity as she's the opposition now as a mitochondria. She says, "You beings must think of your prosperity as history," which kind of stings a little bit because it's true.
Oh yeah, well, in the grand scheme of things, and I think doesn't she follow that up with like, you're only existing because I allowed you to exist.
Right, which is true. It's totally true. And she tells her, she's like, "You have this ability to evolve with me because they share the same." Aya has the organ and she can evolve with her.
Well, okay, let me explain this plot point. All right, so Aya and Eve kind of have this strange connection. Neither one of them knows for sure, or maybe Eve knows but just wants to play coy. It's one of the mysteries the game builds over time, and Aya keeps getting flashbacks to her twin sister who died in a car accident when they were kids. And eventually, as the game progresses, you find out that Melissa Pierce, the actress who became Eve, received an organ transplant from Aya's sister, and thus the mutated mitochondria specifically came from her sister, and that's what Eve is channeling herself through. And then we find out the reason Aya isn't affected is because in the same car accident, she received her sister's eye. It was like a corneal transplant to ensure that to fix her right eye. So that's why she keeps seeing her sister throughout the game, and it's also why her mitochondria has evolved, and as it turns out, has actually evolved even further than Eve's mitochondria, and has thus become stronger.
Right, which is why when she takes her on, it's she kind of has the ability to do that, and I think going back to that cheesy 90ness when she asked her, like, "Why don't you evolve with me?" And, because, like, the humankind is doomed. And I think Aya says, like, "I'll evolve to get rid of you."
There's always little moments. Like, there's really great moments. Like, there's one in another level you can visit in the game, Soho, South Houston, I think. You can... You cut to a scene where the Japanese scientist who's keeping track of everything that's going on in this incident, like, he's trying to get onto the street because he thinks that's where Aya ended up after that carriage chase. And, like, there's a racist NYPD officer who's like, "Speak English, I can't understand what you're saying." And then there's another officer there who actually does speak Japanese, and they're having a conversation. And then the racist cop, like, catches fire because Eve is too close. Like, anyone who gets too close to her, like, immediately just spontaneously combust.
Mm-hmm.
And he just catches fire, and, like, the other officers are trying to put him out, and Maeda, the doctor, is just like, "I'm just gonna sneak past you now."
Yeah.
There's a lot of this game that just, again, it would fit so perfectly as a film. It's very much written like an action film of the 90s.
It is. I think Daniel, her partner, like, okay, so explain to me again. He sacrifices himself at the end, by the way, which is what I'm drawing right here. I'm drawing her on the at the end of the cruise ship. She's going to be looking out at the perfect specimen here. But Daniel jumps out of the plane, and he gives Aya something and then, like, explodes in fire as he does it.
Okay. So here's what happens. all throughout the game, Maeda, the Japanese scientist, keeps giving Aya these Japanese good luck charms, which, if the strategy guide I read a few years back is correct, do nothing for you. They don't help you. They don't give you a boost in stats. They're just junk. And when you're on the battleship cruiser, like, they find out that Eve gave birth, which is bad news. They got to run. And he tries to give Aya something, but Daniel yanks him away. He's like, she doesn't have time for more of your good luck charm shit. Let's go. And then, like, Aya's fighting on the cruiser against the ultimate being, and it just keeps mutating and mutating and mutating. And Maeda's like, man, I really wish I could have given Aya these anti-mitochondria bullets. And Daniel's like, what? Why didn't you say something, you fucking idiot? Give me those. And he jumps out of the helicopter. Like, there's no audio. They don't do voice acting in this game, but he's screaming on his way down, Aya! And he fucking throws a magazine at her, which she catches in midair, and then he bursts into flames because there's massive mitochondrial energy coming from the ultimate being. But he survives because he lands in the ocean right after. So that was his plan. He's like, I'm gonna set myself on fire to save Aya, but don't worry, I'm gonna be okay.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that he survives.
Well, yeah, that'd be really fucked up. He does have a kid whose mom is dead now, so.
Well, I mean, I just didn't remember that, but yeah.
He would have shoved Maeda out of the plane first, just like, oh, it's a one-way trip. Well, bye. Wait, no. Ah! Just land right in front of Aya with the bullets, and she's just like, oh no. Oh, yay.
Delete my browsing history.
It's all the concept art for this game.
Lots of tissue.
Oh, that's unfortunate. But yeah, in regards to the mitochondrial relationship with humans, I actually really love the normal ending for this game. Because all right, small suspension of disbelief. It's a year after the incident. It's in 1998. They go back to Carnegie Hall to watch the same fucking opera. It's been restaged with new actors, of course. Mm-hmm. Which, I'm sorry, but I have a feeling if people who experience a traumatic incident where it was that exact same location, that exact same opera, I don't think they'd be like, yeah, sure, let's see it again. You know, first time was kind of a snafu. It should be fine. and like, you know, it's Aya, Maeda, and Daniel and his son Ben. And like Maeda wants to hit on Aya, and Ben gets between them. He's like, oh, I got the best seat in the house, right next to Aya. And basically cock blocks him. And they start watching the opera, and it's getting to the part where the main character has her aria, which is, you know, how the game begins. And there's a moment where like a torch catches fire, which didn't happen in the version of the show you see at the beginning of the game, and like everyone's like, oh shit, and then it's like the audience is like, sit the fuck down, it's part of the show.
Yeah.
And then they relax, and then like the aria starts playing, and for some reason Aya stands up in the middle of the crowd, and like it starts resonating with all the mitochondria and everybody in the audience. And like you think for a second, like, oh no, is this taking a turn for the worse? But no, she just opens her eyes, and then like the aria keeps playing like normal, everything's peaceful, and it scans out over the audience, and you just have all of these glowing eyes from everyone's mitochondria in harmony, and it's just beautiful.
Oh, okay. It's almost like a psych out then.
Yeah, like you think, oh god, it's gonna happen again, and then you find out, no, this mitochondria is different. It wants to focus on harmony.
Gotcha. That's cool. Yeah, I gotta see that.
Yeah, it's a great ending. And then, I mean, I don't want to say there's a lot of fan theories, but personally, I like to connect that ending with the Chrysler Building ending, because if you manage to make it to the top of the Chrysler Building, you end up finding out that there is a separate being that is Aya's sister. It actually has the consciousness of her sister Maya, and you have to fight it, and eventually Maya overcomes Eve's influence and allows herself to die, and Aya finally gets like some peace, And in that ending, it implies she loses her mitochondrial powers, like it finally resolves that. But I like to connect it as kind of like her powers kind of go dormant after that, and then they reactivate at the opera, because you have them at the beginning of Parasite Eve 2.
Right. I remember.
But they're dulled down. They're not as, because obviously it's not like you can start at the beginning of the game like, well, I maxed out everything, so just liberate, kill everything.
Yeah. That's, and then when I played 2, like, for that, because, again, I was excited for 2. Like, this was going right into 2, I think almost like 6 months after I beat 1, when I had time. And it just didn't do it for me. And here's the thing, too, is that 2 takes away a lot of the RPG elements that were in 1, which to me was, like, its greatest asset. And I just don't know. I don't know why that decision was made, unless it was, like, to save money and time, but they already had the system in place, so I just don't understand why they took that out. That was, like, what killed 2 for me the most, other than the setting.
I mean, it's hard for me to say, really, apples and oranges and all that jazz, but I thoroughly enjoyed the leaning on survival horror aspects. The combat felt a little more fluid to me. Like, honestly, I wouldn't mind a little bit more of a marriage between the 2 games' combat systems for an actual proper either remake or sequel, where, like, you have a camera system that functions a little bit more like survival horror, but you have more RPG elements, again, like range and, your mitochondrial powers and armor and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Almost like the, like kind of what they did for the RE series in a way.
Yeah, because I mean, God knows you can break that one up into at least 3, maybe 4 distinct eras.
Yeah, there would be obviously PS1, then the action era, and then like the return to horror, maybe.
Yeah.
Unless you count it like the offshoots, then you're like the shitty era, the background.
Well, there's the class for Resident Evil. There's the classic era. There's the RE4 action-packed era, which spans 4 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to like go through it with a fine-tooth comb, there's the Revelations era, where it's kind of like we're dipping our toes back in horror a little bit, but we really don't want to lose track of that gameplay that makes us so much money.
Yeah.
And then you have the Revival era, which is where 7, Remake 2, and Remake 3 kind of fall into.
Yeah, which currently Chavo and I have been going through Revelations 1 for the Platinum Trophy, and it's been a bitch.
Yeah, the game has not aged quite as well. I mean, still better than Revelations 2.
Yeah,
but
better than that.
The less said about that right now, the better.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing with, like, especially in like the old era of PS1 days. I mean, the next game had to be bigger and better. And I just don't think that Parasite Eve 2 did that. Not like on the level that RE2 did for RE1, which, again, I'll always say, if somebody made me, like, put a gun to my head and say, you have to pick one Resident Evil that's your favorite, I still think it would be a tie between RE1 and RE2, for me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I want to say that this one, it felt kind of like how a movie will have a sequel like a year or 2 later, and it's like people are like, well, it's good, it's not quite as good as the first. Like, it's not a complete dumpster fire. It didn't capture that certain element they really wanted to see, continued. Whereas the Third Birthday feels like a Sci-Fi Channel studio exclusive, where they're like, we're making a sequel to a big budget film on a Sci-Fi Channel movie budget.
Well, see, and that's the stupidest thing, because, like, first off, you're not wrong, but secondly, why would you call like your premiere, like a premiere series that you created that hasn't been seen in over a decade, why would you not call it Parasite Eve 3? Why would you not even have that in your title? You just call it the third birthday?
Well, I mean, you have to keep in mind it had a very long production history. It was originally supposed to be a mobile game, not a.
Well, yeah, it shows.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be like, it was meant for like handhelds. Like, it wasn't supposed to be of console caliber, and it just, I don't want to say being a handheld game limits stuff, because I've played some handheld games that have amazing, fantastic storytelling, still managed to be, a solid entry. But it just seems like when you do a franchise and you make a handheld title for that franchise, the studios always make the mistake of like, we're not going to put that much effort in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly showed with Resident Evil, with their Revelation series. I joke about it all the time with you, where I'm just like, yeah, Resident Evil Revelations, it feels like a Sci-Fi Channel series. Resident Evil Revelations, on at 8 after Scare Tactics. Just, yeah.
Ah, man. Remember Crackhead Claire in Revelations 2?
That girl needed at least a month of sleep and some fucking coffee, and maybe not being saddled with an annoying side character.
Yeah, put down the meth pipe on that one. But yeah, that's it's, like I said, that's just a problem for series. You have to keep pushing forward, and if you're gonna do a sequel, it has to some capacity like up the first one in some way. And I think like a lot of series skate by because there's just fans who are so hungry for something they'll just take anything. But I know Resident Evil certainly skated on that, or Silent Hill for that matter. But
yeah, definitely not a basket of gold on that franchise.
Yeah, but Parasite Eve, I think right out the gate was just too strong on their first outing that second one there was no way it was going to top it, given what they went with. That wasn't the direction to go to top it. That might have worked for the third game, but not the second game, in my opinion.
I don't know. Unfortunately it's something I don't think we'll ever really get to see properly resolved, considering it feels like outside of a few mumbles about a possible remake of the first game, which I would be all for. Square Enix has pretty much kind of just left it behind. Like, it doesn't seem like a property they really want to fight for, even though I feel it would probably be better for their studio if they did. Like they don't have to monitor that one as closely as Final Fantasy VII. It's not like they have to be like, okay, so you actually have to be 100% spot on. You cannot fuck this up. This is our get out of jail free card. With Parasite Eve, it's more like, okay, so there's room for improvement, there's room for change. Resident Evil 2 remake did pretty well. Let's see if we can kind of capture that spirit and still keep the RPG element strong.
Yeah, a lot of series are like rumored at this moment in time to be following that too. So it's a good time to jump on the bandwagon. And a lot of people were a lot of rumors were coming out for Metal Gear getting a remake. Metal Gear Solid, I should say, and Silent Hill, but Konami just closed its like game division studio permanently, so unless they're outsourcing it, I don't think those rumors are true. We'll see though. But you're right, Parasite Eve would definitely be one that Square should focus on.
Like, I feel like the stakes aren't as quite as high for that remake. I hesitate to say that just because I don't want to make it sound like the public would give them an out if they fucked it up.
No, but it could bring new fans on, given that, JRPGs, while they don't always sell well, I feel like this one would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could just be... It could be that it's not so much that they don't want to, it's just it'd be expensive, because I'm pretty sure New York City, like those landmarks, they actually do have to pay to show. I think they actually do have to pay to show them, like certain landmarks like the Statue of Liberty, maybe the Chrysler Building.
I didn't know that.
I don't quote me on that one for sure. Because because I don't know how that one would necessarily work, but I do New York. The New York Tourism Board, like in terms of how New York is represented, is actually pretty stringent.
Yeah, but I also wonder too, because I'm not sure if this is the first game based off a book. I know there's been games based off of movies that were based off books, but the movie, it was based more off the movie than the book. But I wonder how much it costs for like that alone, just to pay the author and be like, hey, we want to make another game, bro.
I don't know, because Eve is technically the only recurring character. I don't think Maeda was actually featured in the original novel. The only characters from the novel, like they're only referenced, like Mariko Brea and actually maybe Mariko was a reference from the movie. They try not to reference the movie adaptation of the original book too much because it has a radically different ending from what I remember. But sorry, this trying to remember different adaptations, different rules here.
It really is like the powerhouse of the cell, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm looking it up right now, so let's see. So yeah, you still can watch Parasite Eve, the movie, which is a Japanese horror film, on YouTube for free. So there's nothing to stop you from doing that. Or, you know, people have obviously invested time into making a Parasite Eve, the movie, video game movie. So you can do all these things to catch up on the series. God forbid you go out and just play the damn game because it's so good. But if you're really not a fan of tank controls and JRPG stuff, you know, there's certainly ways to go about familiarizing yourself with the series, because I think it's worth it, at least for the first game and the second game, I'll say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because and this is me being picky, so you know, you might fall in love with the second game more than the first game. I don't know. It's just a personal preference of mine that I didn't like the setting of it as much as the first game.
And again, I don't know. Like revisiting the story for this game, for the first game, it really has been a treat because there's so much that I think just on this, like taking the gameplay out for a second, just in how well it's written, it maintains tension very well. There's a sequence I actually really love where the police station gets sieged by Eve. Like she attacks the police station, and you get back too late. Like a lot of people are dead or dying. And while all of this is going on, Daniel's son Ben, he like befriended a dog in the canine unit, and like the dog's running away from him through the police station because like for us who've been playing the game, we know like the dog knows something's up, and the dog knows that it's probably not safe for it to be around the kid. And the kid, being, you know, a child, is just like, no, Shiva, wait for me. So he's like running through the police station chasing after this dog, and you're like close behind him trying to catch up to him. And it's a great sequence because the reveal, you know, it's so good. The music's just on point. Again, it's just like this pulsing electronica, you know. Dun, 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 dun. I can't even do it properly, but yeah, it's just like driving the whole time. Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite sequences of the game because. And we'll just, like, spoil it, obviously. Like, the dog does turn because it's full of mitochondria, just like all of us. And it turns into this terrible monstrosity that, again, you have to fight in this small little battle arena of a classroom, I think it is. Or no, like it's a old, unused detective's office above him. Like, there's just these windows. And there's just, like, shit scattered everywhere, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and basically the police chief is like protecting the kid, you know, behind you while you're trying to deal with this dog, which has sprouted 2 more heads. It's almost like The Thing. yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually intentional. Yeah, the catalyst for that design. But yeah, I want to say that sequence.
The museum was a hell of a lot of fun to run through. Although I will say at that point, I was curious how much longer the game was because I didn't want it to go too long. As much fun as I was having, some games just don't need to go too long. Like, for instance, Alien Isolation. But I want to say at that point, I was heavily invested in the game, and I was all in at that point.
It's pretty much the last like hell of a roller coaster because like once you get past the museum, everything goes really fast.
Mm-hmm.
You're heading to the Statue of Liberty, and then you're on a tanker thinking it's over, and then you find out it's not over, and you got to run, and next thing you know, the ship blows up. Happy ending. People are alive.
That's and I will point this out too. That is the worst part for saves in the entire game is that last battle with the baby that I'm about to draw here in the drawing, but. And there's a problem in the PS1 era, and sometimes it's even a problem in games today. But you save, you go through like a 5-fucking-minute cutscene, you go through a 5-minute battle, let's say you get past the first part of it, and then you have to run, correct me if I'm wrong, Chavo, you have to run and you have to like go to a certain path, the baby's following you, and if you don't do it within a certain time and like fast enough, which is it's really fast, like 30 seconds to a minute.
It's unforgiving. You have to make the right turns at every step of the way. Like I'll give you an example. Literally right after the battle, you go into like this antechamber in the ship, and there's a phone to save on, and then there's a door. If you try to save, it's going to be like the line's disconnected. There's no, you can't save. And then you try to open the door, and the door takes forever to open. So because you wasted your time trying to save, you die. And then you have to go through the whole conversation leading up to the boss fight again.
And the cutscene, everything. Granted, it is kind of cool, like seeing the baby crawling after you. It's really creepy as shit. But yeah, again, it's just one of those problems of that era, and it pissed me off so much when I was going through it because, this is like a 20-hour game if you really invest time into it. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm ready to beat it. My body is ready. And then I just die, and I have to go through all that stuff again. And I was like, God damn it. Because I was high. I was high on knowing that I was right about to beat the game, It kind of killed it for me. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna assume things, but I am gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if that was intentional. Maybe if the developers were like, yeah, let's really fuck with the players. If they try to do the sensible thing, we got to force them to actually take risk and run.
Yeah, and I should point out, I don't mean like physically high, like I took drugs or something, but. I was high on the enjoyment of the game.
You're high on life, man.
Yeah, man. You know me, man. Take one whiff of sobriety.
I'm gonna make an energy drink, and I'm just gonna call it sobriety. Opening up a fresh can. It's actually hard seltzer. Anyway.
Little lime sparkle.
Exactly.
But yeah, do you have any other factoids about the game that we might have glossed over, Chavo?
Well, I have a little anecdote here. So I never got to say where my very first time I ever heard about Parasite Eve was.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same magazine where I saw or read about Silent Hill the first time. It had like a review of it and like a walkthrough, and I still have it to this day just because I remember reading that walkthrough and desperately wanting to know what was going on in the story because it sounded so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually a tiny blurb article in there talking about how Madonna, the pop singer Madonna, was like interested in the film rights for Parasite Eve, and they're like, the guy writing the article is like, well, the thought of Madonna fans bursting into flames during one of her concerts entertains me. I don't think this would be a good idea.
I'm gonna agree with that assumption.
Yeah, that we almost had. We very well could have had a Parasite Eve game where Madonna played Aya Brea.
As much as I would have liked to have seen that, I don't know if it would have been good.
No, she would have overacted the shit out of it probably.
Mm-hmm.
You know where we are? Or with a fake Brooklyn accent too. Hell's Kitchen.
Daniel would have been like, so I guess we're some sort of Suicide Squad?
Oh, God. No, they wouldn't have got Will Smith for it. He would have been too busy playing Marvin Branagh in the Resident Evil 2 movie.
Oh, man.
Did you guys literally call this character Will Smith cop in the script? What the fuck?
That, you know what? That would have been good casting, though. But if they did the Marva Branagh in the remake where he actually gets to do shit, not the one in the original where he's just like, just go. Looks like your party's been canceled.
He wasn't injured. He wasn't fucking him. He just didn't want to get up. He was like, here, take this key card. As soon as they left, oh, thank fuck, and crack open this cold one. It has been a rough night.
There are no survivors in the other rooms, dumbass.
Marvin, I brought back first aid. Oh, fuck!
That's I should point out too, when I first played Resident Evil 2 as a child, I honestly thought like, oh wow, that's cool. I'm gonna rescue people in the other rooms. No.
Closest you're ever gonna get to that would be Outbreak, really.
Yeah.
Because you actually can save, or you can help civilians out.
Yeah, this is true.
Like the mother and daughter that you can find in the flashback level.
Yeah, we're gonna cover Outbreak at some point. I wish I had time to do a drawing of the whole cast, but that would take way too long. Maybe just Cindy Lennox.
Wearing nothing but her waitress vest, because everyone loves drawing her like really skanky, even though she's like canonically in game a quote unquote good Christian girl. Oh my goodness! Yeah. Oh my Lord! God help me!
I'm gonna go ahead and say that's probably not the case, but she does have the Playboy unlockable, right?
Well, yeah, but that's the thing too. When you find the items for that costume, she hates them. She's just like, almost all of them were like, "This is part of the new uniform Jack wants for the bar." Perv. Oh man, Aya's looking gorgeous in this picture.
Thanks. I mean, she is a sexy babe. She's and she's definitely kicks ass, so I knew I could do her justice. It's just the baby that I'd never drawn before.
I mean, it's a lumpy gray mass of flesh. Like, how specific did you really need to be?
Well, I would say that to me, where I screwed up on it is I didn't get the shadows right, because it was literally like, okay, I got to finish this right now and we got to do this. But I'm not, again, and I think this will come out after the Clementine video. So that, again, I'm just still learning how to draw kids. I've never drawn a baby before. So that's...
You know what? Don't beat yourself up too much. Even the developers of Cyberpunk 2077 have that problem, considering I think all their child models are literally just the adult models shrunk down to child size.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Kids are just fucking weird proportionally to draw, so people are just like, you know what? Screw it. Close enough.
Yeah. I remember watching a video of Todd McFarlane talking about it. I think he drew a kid or something on his Facebook Live or whatever. But he's like, yeah, all you got to do is you just got to make the neck skinny and then just make everything else skinny. And I'm like, okay, what else? Because that's not it. That is not the end of the equation.
Ends up looking like Mr. Burns in that episode where everyone thought he was an alien walking through the forest.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to love, or something like that.
But yeah, this is this whole thing was very much just thrown together for the background. I obviously took my time on, but the rest of it, I just really kind of wanted to see what would come out of it. I just started drawing, not even thinking about it. And so, you get the background you get. And I should have planned it out more, like I always should when I start my drawings. But I just kind of like to see where it takes me sometimes.
Kind of looks like she's watching the moon explode. Just be like, it was just like, this problem just got way, way further out of my grasp. The Men in Black show up. That's why we're here. Oh, shit, Will Smith!
Just look into this little flashy thing right here.
Holds up a mirror. Fuck!
Uses her mitochondria powers.
Sets them on fire.
Summon mirror.
Wow, I always wondered what that ability would be for. Oddly specific, but whatever. Okay, so confession time. I only used like a third of her powers.
Oh no. I think I used heal and like 2 other ones that I can't even recall, and that was it.
I use heal. In my recent playthrough, I've discovered haste is actually your best friend. Because you get to run around faster as well. And also, if you get that stupid affliction where you get stuck in like a spider web, you can use it to break out of that. Like if you cast haste, you can just be like, ha, psych, bitch, I can run.
That's right. I did use haste. That was the other one. Because it also helps in boss fights, too, because it's harder for them to hit you.
And then liberate is just straight up how I kick the final boss's asses.
Liberate. Oh, yeah, the transformation.
Turning into that blue chick with the Wendy's hair.
Yeah. Shiva, basically.
Totally just connected the dots there. That dog's name is probably a Final Fantasy Easter egg. There's a few of them in the game, actually.
That's right. The dog's name was Shiva, right?
Yeah, the dog's name's Shiva. In the museum, in the Natural History Museum, on the 3D map of New York, if you let it linger, you get to look at the building, and it has a tapestry on the front that says Chocobo, and it's got a picture of a Chocobo. Oh, and then in the museum, you actually have a Chocobo on like a stuffed Chocobo on exhibit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty tasteful for their Final Fantasy references.
Yeah. Yeah, so, because we're about to get out of here in a couple of minutes, I'm just going to sum up what I think is why it's worth playing Parasite Eve. First off, if you're into horror games, obvious. It's like so obvious. If you think that for any reason, because it's starring a woman, it's just not going to be a fun time, then no, that's not true. Aya Brea is definitely a badass character, and they do it through her the way she talks and the way she reacts to things. She's not a Mila Jovovich of the game, where she just can fucking explode and karate chop and do whatever the hell she wants. Aya definitely earns it, and she definitely has fears in the game, like where she feels alone, and she feels like a freak because she's, sharing this thing with Eve of being basically a parasite. So I think there are many reasons to like Aya as a character. And the game itself, like I said, the JRPG mechanics, 100% worth it. A lot of fun to mess around with. The settings are badass. Going around New York City, you get to select where you want to go. So the game doesn't hinder you in that way. There's no load times that I can think of that were like super long or anything. So it's very much fun, except for like if you have a problem with tank controls, can't help you there. So I don't know. What about you, Chavo?
Well, I guess I'll kind of palindrome this and start with the tank controls. They're really not that problematic.
No.
You don't have to actually worry about aiming too much like you do in Resident Evil, so I really don't think tank controls would be a valid excuse not to play it. The game is written. It's very well written. It does not waste time. It keeps the story moving at a fairly brisk pace. You can actually blow through the main plot pretty quick if you know what to do and where to go. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of exploration. The character development is fantastic. Aya Brea is up there with strong female characters done right. The because again, she's allowed to have fears and insecurities. She's not perfect, and despite some of the game's concept art, she's also not a dumb big titty bimbo either. She's competent. She's the game. This, I have to say, out of all the games, this is actually, strangely enough, the one where she's probably the least objectified.
Yes. Yeah, she's not over-sexualized, really. Like, maybe her opera dress is the most it gets.
And even then, that's actually pretty tasteful. So
yeah, it's just a nice dress.
But yeah, the character development, the writing, there's no reason to sleep on this game. It should still be available on the PlayStation Network if you have access to a PSP or PS3. But yeah, play it, support it. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get a remake someday.
Yeah, if you like it enough, go bitch at Square about it. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Fill out those suggestion forms and just be like, Parasite Eve, when?
Because it should be now. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a thoroughly enjoyable experience. Try the sequel. Like the second one is at least worth a play. I guarantee you won't lose sleep missing the third one though.
No, and I like even just watching a video of someone explaining the faults of the third game, I was just like, oh my God, what were they thinking? It's like, oh, it's bad. It's like the worst type of tropes of like taken out of video games and clunked together into one game. That's what it felt like.
I'd say that's pretty spot on.
Yeah. But other than that, as for the drawing and everything, I'm going to try and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start focusing on just the characters as the main point of the drawings and then putting in like a simplified background. So I can at least keep my promise to utilize backgrounds and not just draw simple characters. If anyone else has any suggestions, let me know. The next coming videos, soon to come videos after this, will definitely feature those aspects. But yeah, other than that, I mean, my co-host Webb wasn't here. He's super busy. He has a channel called The Critical Android, so go check that out if you can. If you want to follow me, I am on Instagram under Cyberpunk Holiday. I sometimes will share some early art from the show on there, or I'll just share whatever the hell it is I'm doing that I feel like I should share, which I don't too often, but it's here and there. Chavo, did you want to plug the stage production you did?
No, not right now. I'm kind of trying to focus on working on some other projects right now, but when I have info, trust me, you guys will be the first to hear about it.
Yeah, and I'm also always writing other than the drawing. I will have a project coming soon that I'm going to release that everyone can hopefully jump on the bandwagon for and get behind. It's going to be a cool Kickstarter project.
You better, because I want it on my fucking shelf.
Hey, yeah, I mean that would be the bee's knees to see people enjoying that and see what they think of it. But yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything else to say. Any last notes, Chavo?
No, just good to be back. Hopefully I can stop by a little more often and get to share in this awesome art and hopefully, flesh out some more projects and talk about some more awesome games.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to thank everyone for being with us. There's probably going to be like a little bit more time before the speed up happens. But anyways, everyone have a good night. Thanks.
Good night, everybody.